Israel is withholding more than $5 billion of tax revenues that it owes to the Palestinian Authority, or PA. Critics say the move is meant to cripple, if not completely undo, the little autonomy and self-rule that Palestinians still have in the occupied West Bank. Palestinian officials are calling for international action to release the funds. Deprived of its main source of income, the Palestinian Authority warns that it's on the brink of economic collapse.
The situation for Palestinians in the occupied West Bank is already catastrophic. And now, because the Israeli government refuses to relinquish $5 billion worth of tax revenues it owes to the Palestinian Authority, they're running out of money.
For nearly 3 years, we've been getting a percentage of our salary, some months 70, some months 60%. For example, this month they informed us that we will get 50% tomorrow.
Since last November, we're only been taking like 50% of our salaries. It's been a miserable financial situation.
Think about a country importing all basic commodities and collecting taxes before they are sold to the market. That process, because the PA does not actually have control over the crossings, is collected by Israel, by the way, against 3% fee.
These tax revenues, taken from both goods and services, make up around 70% of the Palestinian Authority's annual income. As agreed upon via the Paris Protocol of 1994, all revenues from taxes on imports from countries other than Israel that come through Israeli crossings must be transferred to the Palestinian Authority within 6 working days. The PA also sends part of those tax revenues to Gaza. Israel claims, without showing evidence, that Hamas, which is in power in Gaza and separate from the PA, uses some of this money to fund acts of terrorism. For years, Israel allowed foreign funding to reach Hamas, despite it being classified a terror organization by several countries.
Historically, since the PA was created, in every crisis or dispute within the PA and Israel, the Israeli government would use tax revenues as a tactical, in my opinion, or used to use them as tactical pressure tool on the PA for certain, issues. When the PA went to the UN or like joined international organizations against the Israeli will, they would use that as a punishment tool for specific periods of time.
In response to Hamas's attacks on Israel on October 7, 2023, Israel's finance minister Bezalel Smotrich first reduced the transfer of tax revenues to the PA, even though it's a separate governing body, and Hamas in Gaza is its political rival. Then, 1 year ago, Smotrich stopped these transfers altogether, leading to what is over $5 billion in owed tax revenue and counting, after Spain, Ireland and Norway recognized the state of Palestine. He later tweeted, "With God's help, I will act using all the tools at my disposal to prevent the danger of the Palestinian state, and this includes dismantling the PA, by means of economic strangulation." In the meantime, the PA, the West Bank's largest employer, now owes its 190,000 workers the equivalent of over a year's unpaid wages. Last month, everyone from ministers to janitors received a flat payment of around $400. Many primary health clinics are operating 1 day a week.
It's the worst situation in the health ministry's history. We're facing the near collapse of the health system.
Schools are on reduced hours.
So when you don't have a regular education process, when you have only 3 days to come to school and get your education, that will not be enough for a good education.
And that's the reality for those technically with jobs. The unemployment rate in the occupied West Bank among Palestinians over the age of 15 shows that joblessness there applies to nearly 1/3 of the population. Part of that includes the roughly 130,000 workers without access to jobs in Israel. We asked the spokesperson for Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich what the total sum of withheld Palestinian tax revenues was, where it was being held and why. Smotrich's team declined to give further details on the total number and whereabouts of the withheld funds, but responded by saying, "The PA remains the enemy that sets the wheels of terror in Judea and Samaria in motion. We will not continue to provide life support to a body that educates for and finances our destruction." For proponents of Smotrich's approach, this is as it should be.
The money was never theirs, it should never have been theirs, and now Israel is fully within its legal right to say, I am not going to fund my own destruction.
It's collective punishment because it's basically punishing average people, not necessarily officials. But second of all, it's even more strategic than and abusive than than collective punishment, because it aims to change strategically all the parameters of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict into a fully contained Israeli military occupation.
Joost Hilterman is a special advisor for the Middle East and North Africa at the International Crisis Group. Among his areas of expertise is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, as well as political and economic developments in the occupied West Bank. Welcome to the day, Joost. Now, how crucial is this money Israel is withholding for the effective governance of the Palestinian territories?
Well, thank you very much, Nicole. The money that Israel is withholding in terms of the clearance revenues that Israel collects on the Palestinian Authority's behalf at the Israeli borders amounts to 2/3 of the Palestinian Authority's budget. So by withholding that amount, obviously the PA is in dire economic financial straits. It cannot pay salaries to its public sector employees in full, and it has to borrow heavily from various sources in order to keep the operation running.
How close does that leave the Palestinian Authority to financial collapse?
Well, that's the funny thing. Well, not funny, of course, but some Palestinians say, financial experts, that the PA financially is already insolvent. It has gone bankrupt, but yet it is still there. And somehow it's been possible to keep it running. And I think part of the reason why it hasn't completely collapsed yet is because neither Israel nor especially the United States don't want it to collapse. They want it to be weak, independent, but not to collapse, because if it collapses, then the responsibility of taking care of the Palestinian population of 3.3 million in the West Bank would fall on the Israelis.
And can you explain why? Because you say somehow they've been able to keep things running. Is that because money is trickling in, money that Israel is allowing to come in, or where does that money come from?
Sure. No, there's other sources of income. I said that the clearance revenues is 2/3 of the PA's income. There is another third. There's tax revenues, and there are various other sources. Of course, is European budget support. So it's not that the PA would collapse tonight, or if that income continues to accrue. But it is true that the PA is severely weakened by the lack of the income from the clearance revenues.
What are the implications of all of what you're laying out for everyday Palestinians?
Well, for everyday Palestinians, it's not just the clearance revenues, because that is, let's say, 200,000 public sector employees. You multiply it by 5, given the average size of a family, that's 1 million people out of 3.3 million. So that is already a major impact on the economy. But you add to that 200,000 Palestinians who have not been able to go to their jobs inside Israel since October 7th, 2023. So that's also a huge chunk of family income. And then, all the economic and movement restrictions that Israel has imposed, they existed before October 7th, 2023, but they've been accelerated and compounded since then. All of that is making life extremely difficult for people to bring, put food on the table. And if people survive, it's only because of extended families dipping in and spreading the scarce resources around.
Yeah. We heard of far-right Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich in the report. To what extent is he driving this policy, and how much support does he have in the government?
Well, so he was appointed Minister of Finance following the elections in late 2022. And he has a clear ideological agenda. He is a settler leader. He lives in the occupied West Bank. And his agenda is to annex the West Bank. He's very open and explicit about it. And he wants the Palestinians out, or if they stay, to be totally submissive to Israeli will. Now, as finance minister, he has been able to institute a number of the financial punishments, really punitive measures that we have seen since October 7, 2023, including the withholding of the clearance revenues. But he's also keeping the Palestinian economy on tenterhooks by refusing to issue key letters of indemnity and indemnification by Israeli correspondent banks to Palestinian banks. From the Israeli finance minister to Israeli correspondent banks, that would protect them from any kind of money laundering accusations, and so he's issuing them on a 2-weekly basis, which is no way to run an economy, because in those 2 weeks, when they pass, investors, businesses, they don't know if they will be renewed, and without a renewal, the banking relations between Israel and Palestine will collapse.
Israel says the money they're withholding goes towards the funding of terrorism. I want to know from you, is there any evidence of that? How transparent is the Palestinian Authority with its finances?
Well, the Palestinian Authority is very transparent with its finances, in part because it's been forced to be so by the international community. It's one of the most scrutinized financial systems in the world. And so there is no issue of transparency. This is an empty accusation. If you say this money is going to Hamas, okay, that's a different story, but it's not going to Hamas. It's going to the Palestinian Authority, which is the political enemy of Hamas. So it's just made up stuff. You know, we've seen so many excuses brought to the table in order to prevent the Palestinian economy from basic functioning that, this is just one of them.
I want to look at the long game here, because some analysts warn that weakening the PA precisely could further destabilize the West Bank. From a security standpoint, could this policy then backfire on Israel itself?
Well, there is a tension within the Israeli system, because there are the people like the ideologues like Mr. Smotrich and Mr. Ben-Gvir, who don't care about stability in the West Bank, because if in fact there is another Palestinian uprising, for example, that gives them cover for crushing it and therefore making life impossible for Palestinians and basically driving them out if they have the chance. But there are others in the Israeli establishment, especially on the security and intelligence side, and I don't want to make a black and white picture, but in any case, there are those who think that, in fact, maybe in the longer term, it would be good if Palestinians were made to leave. But for now, they're there, and somehow that requires a certain degree of stability. And so if you risk that stability, then the task of the security forces will be immense. And they don't want that. And so this tension within the Israeli system is actually producing a sort of paralysis. The efforts by the far right ministers is not being implemented, except to the extent that the economy is kept very weak and very dependent and totally on tenterhooks.
Says Joost Hilderman of the International Crisis Group. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you so much.